Greetings, YouTube. I'll be linking to an article over on the Blue concerning the LAPD police force that fills the air with copters. You see, they seem to be really happy about the fact that they have the biggest law enforcement, you know, personal private airline, of the whole world because they fill the sky with copters. They're really thrilled about the fact that, they're just proactive, got those copters out there. Except there was an audit done, and apparently this huge fleet of copters flying above LA to the extent that, the sound never ever seems to stop, aren't deterring crime. I know. A police force taking money away from the community and putting it into something they think is really cool that doesn't actually benefit the community they're supposed to be helping and serving should come as a shock to anyone that's ever been to America. Uh, I'd like to point out that the American law enforcement system did grow out of slave patrols. Remember that, folks, that our policing system, from its very inception, is inherently racist. Always has been, and until we dismantle it, always will be. Even if no one in the system were a racist, and we know there are racists in our police systems of America, the system itself is racist. So yeah, so that's where the whole systemic racism comes into play. But in this case, it just seems to be a massive waste of time. And to me, it's really kind of obvious because you got this snowball effect. Because if you have a copter, you have to justify using the copter. And if you are successful at justifying using the copter, then you've made a great case for justifying having two copters. And then if you justify maintaining and using your two copters, you of course have made a wonderful justification for having three copters, which then justifies it to have four. You get the point. It just steamrolls. And then once you have your fleet, whatever size fleet that you end up with, you then have to justify their existence. So you have to keep them doing things. And as long as people see them doing things, it's kind of the version of if you want to blend into some place and not be questioned about what you're doing, carry a clipboard around. If you have a clipboard and you look like you're headed somewhere to do something, people will by and large ignore you, even if you are in fact doing nothing. Same thing here. Keep those copters always flying, and people will be convinced that you obviously have to be doing something, right? You wouldn't just be flying copters around because you like having your own private copter fleet, right? Huh? Right? Yeah. That's the kind of justification I think we've got going on here. Now, in the modern era of the 21st century, there isn't any particular reason you couldn't do everything that is being done with the copters in LA with drones. Now, let me make it very clear that I don't think drones should be used for clandestine spying on Americans, and I don't think drones should be armed. I don't have a problem with drones being used to deliver packages in America. That's going to happen, so long as those packages are not lethal. Because I know that the police department will probably justify delivering packages that explode and kill people. But there isn't any reason you couldn't do all this stuff with drones out there. You make them sure that they're very visible. You make sure that nobody is being spied on. That just there are times when you're going to need an eye in the sky pointed at something. It's just that those times are probably really limited. You're not going to need an eye in the sky all the damn time. And one of the reasons that I think that drones are great, well, first of all, they're just kind of cool, they're safer. A drone is going to be smaller than a copter. So right there and then, the drone is safer because if the drone fails, it is a smaller object's falling from the sky. Because copters do occasionally fall from the sky. It does happen. And if you lose a drone, you've lost a bunch of money. You don't lose the crew on board the copter. So using drones as opposed to copters would be much safer for everyone concerned. You would significantly reduce the risk to life. because there is no crew on board, and because the object is smaller, it will inherently do less damage if it falls from the sky. And everything that is in the sky has a tendency to eventually fall out of the sky. It just happens. Even if it is statistically less likely than a car accident, when it happens, people pay attention because there's things falling out of the sky. Um, so I think that we could be doing a lot of stuff with that currently being done by copters with drones, and you'd have a much smaller fleet. You could probably get, you know, the entire thing would be the tenth of the size it is now, which was obviously going to be costing a lot less money to maintain, and they're probably easier to upgrade than a copter system is. Copters are expensive, and getting upgrades on copters is not something you can be doing cheaply. Whereas drones are more modular in their nature and can have things replaced. Like they're designed, for example, to have entire battery packs and things replaced. So they're designed inherently to have stuff that's put in them and removed and put back in. So copters are a little less flexible than that. And it's just, they're quieter. Seriously, a drone is significantly quieter than a copter is. Now, let's step back a second and realize that if we were to reduce, say, the LA Police Air Force down to a tenth the size it is now, you could take all that money and then you put all that money into the community, making sure people have things like housing and healthcare, community centers for people to, connect with, and kids to have after-school activities, making sure people are getting the right kinds of foods, just making sure that everyone in the community has what they need to be safe and to live a happy, healthy life. You do that, and crime will go down. And then the justification for having a fleet of helicopters begins to disappear, because that's the goal. The goal is to reduce crime, right? And you don't reduce crime with law enforcement. We've shown that. You reduce crime by investing resources into communities. That reduces crime. Because if you look at places where you say that are safe, what do those communities have? Abundant resources. If every community had abundant resources, every community would be equally safe. There's always going to be a degree of criminality, we know this, but it will be significantly lower if people feel that they have security and a future, and they haven't been thrown away by society or viewed as some kind of, social pariah that is unwanted, which is how we treat people in low-income communities today. Yeah, we do. So I think we should be really looking at any kind of police department that trying to justify the existence of copters. Use drones, have a lower budget, invest money into communities, and I think that, we'd all be better off. But since the entire existence of police forces is not really to make sure we're all better off, maybe the current one is working just as it was designed.